All right, greetings, algebra themes and connections students. This is Mrs. Wyan, and this is our first recorded lesson since if you're watching this, you didn't come to the live lesson at 9 a.m. I know that's not easy to get up that early, but it's pretty quick. So if you do it, it'd usually be painless and you go right back to sleep. Um, so the way this is going to work is you're going to have a lesson to do almost every Wednesday and Friday. Every once in a while I'll give you a free day because you guys are technically an alternate day class. But you're going to have a lesson to do in order to get a fourth quarter grade. And why is that so important to have a good fourth quarter grade? Well, here's why. Some of you may have gotten the recent news that the Regents is canceled. Now there's some stipulations around that do affect you. So anybody who's in Algebra 1 right now, which is not you guys, but anybody who's in Algebra 1 and who was scheduled to take the Algebra Regents in June is allowed to just basically get credit as if you passed the Regents, like you get the exam credit, because they're not going to have a test, and that's not your fault they're not going to have a test. Now, how does that work for test prep students? Technically, you have to be in a course that's ending in the June 2020 Regents in order to get this free credit, which is fabulous for you all because you're in a course that ends in the June 2020 Regents. Just because you passed Algebra 1 in previous years doesn't automatically get you the credit. But the fact that you're enrolled in a course that gives you the Regents at the end, if you pass my class, then you get freebie Regents exam credit for the Algebra 1 exam. Now, some people have gotten their minimum 55 in quarter 3, and you're going to be auto-enrolled in APEX so you can pull that third quarter grade up. And the fourth quarter grade will be entirely online and should be very easy for you to do because you either attend class live and get the work done, or you watch my video and get the work done. It should be pretty easy, and you can even do it on your phone. I try to make it so that you wouldn't even necessarily need a Chromebook in order to be able to do our stuff. You just need to have Google Docs and Google Classroom on your phone in order to do this. That said, one more important thing is that if you're in the class right now, technically it's a semestered class. So the first half of the year doesn't matter because that was Algebra Themes and Connections 1, and the spring is Algebra Themes and Connections 2. So you're in a spring course. The only two parts of your grade are quarter 3 and quarter 4. Both of those are entirely within your control to pass and get your credit so that you've automatically passed the Regents. So everybody is going to get this free pass if you do your work. Also, if you do a good enough job in the online portion, your fourth quarter grade should be at least a 75, and that will average with the 55 minimum grade that you would have had in quarter 3, and you don't even need to do APEX and you'll still pass. But the bottom line is you have to do good work in quarter 4. All right, so in order to do that, enough lecturing like I'm your parent. Algebra Themes and Connections, no matter what period you are, it pretty much looks the same. You're going to go into the classwork, and every assignment's going to be dated, and there's going to be a link to the live classroom meeting, and there'll be the document that you have to work on. Everybody gets their own copy. When you click on it, it opens up one with your name or your ID as the title of the document. And for afterward, every time, like if you've missed the live class, there'll be a link to a YouTube video, which you'll see after this one is done. So just keep popping in there and making sure you get your work done, and you should be okay. Now, when you click on this, you open up the document, it's going to open up something that looks like this. So here's the first one, test prep, multiple choice practice. So it says, type your name in this box and then the number of the best choice in the box next to each question. So first you have to type your name here. So I'm going to type my name. And then we're going to do each question. And this is the actual set of questions that you have to do. So if you pay attention to the video and put the answers in, you're going to be able to submit a paper that's worth a perfect score. Sometimes during the video, I'm going to type the questions. Sometimes I'm just going to say them so that you can't just scroll through the video and just look at the answers and see by the end what we typed without even listening to it, because I really do want you to learn from this. I will try to keep the videos shorter than the whole class would be. Okay, first question. A plumber has a set fee for a house call and charges by the hour for repairs. The total cost of her services can be modeled by, and they give you function notation, C of t, so the cost in terms of time, is equal to 125t plus 95. Which statements about this function are true? So if you quick glance down here at choices 1, 2, 3, and then you see that this is all the 1 and 2 only, 1 and 3 only, we have to figure out which one of these things are true. Maybe all of them are true. It's not that none of them are true, because that's not a choice. And you look up here and they don't say anything about y-intercept or slope, but I can see that's the slope, that's the y-intercept. One of these two things is going to be something that in the situation happens only once, and one of these two things is going to be something that happens more than once. So if we talk about hourly fee versus, what was the other thing, a house call, they said? Yeah, a house call. You're not paying for a house call over and over and over again. You're just paying that $95 once. So that makes sense for choice 1. Okay, 1's going to be true. The house call is $95. That means that the per hour, per means multiplied by our variable t, plumber charges 125 per hour. That makes sense too. So it's definitely choice 1 and 2. So that means I'm either looking at 1 for an answer or 4 for an answer. Let's see if the third thing makes sense. The number of hours the job takes is represented by t. Yeah, that makes sense. T is time, so that is the number of hours the job takes. So I'm going to put in choice 4 as the answer. Choice 1 and 2 would have been a distractor for somebody who was rushing and wasn't taking their time to get the question right. All right, question 2. This one's an exponential function. It says equation A equals 1300 times 1.02 to the 7th power is being used to calculate the amount of money in a savings account. That looks really complicated, but all they're asking you is what does the 1.02 represent? Now, if it's money in a bank, hopefully your money's growing, so that should be growth. We could probably throw away the decays. Another hint I could tell you that when that number in the parentheses, the growth factor, when the growth factor is bigger than 1, it means you're growing by a certain percent. If the growth factor was less than 1, it's actually decaying by a certain percent. So how much bigger than 100 is 1.02? 100% would be 1.00. 1.02 is 2%, 2% growth. So again, it's choice 4. These decimal ones were distractors for people who didn't realize that the decimal, you have to convert it into a regular percent by moving the decimal 2 places. Okay, this next one, you're going to have to do it out a little bit, so I'm going to do this on a smart notebook so you can see my work. But it says when 2x minus 3 all squared is subtracted from 5x squared, the result is, and we get a whole bunch of choices that look kind of similar, so pretty much they're counting on you making some kind of silly negative sign mistake, and they're assuming that you pretty much know what you're doing. So I've got to square this and then subtract it from 5x squared. So I'm going to jump over into my smart notebook so you can see it. So I've got that thing subtracted from 5x squared. The from goes first. So I'm going to have to say 5x squared goes first because I'm subtracting this from that. Okay, now I got to figure out what this is, so I've got to square that. And when squaring something, it means you're multiplying it by itself. So I've got to say, okay, 2x minus 3 times 2x minus 3, and I've got to figure out what that is equivalent to. Still taking that 5x squared along for the ride and saving it for later. Now you've got to do the double distribution. The only trick, and you'll notice that's where the negative sign mistakes are going to come in, is when somebody forgets to use the parentheses on this whole big piece after you multiply. If you don't apply a negative and change the sign of everything once we're done, then it's going to come out wrong, and it's actually going to come out as one of the multiple choice choices. That's how the Regents gets evil and gets your points away from you. Okay, so 2x times 2x is 4x squared. Then the first 2x times negative 3 is negative 6x. Then negative 3 times that 2x is negative 6x. And negative 3 times negative 3 is a positive 9. Now hopefully you can kind of see ahead of time, that's going to make negative 12x when you combine like terms, and that's going to make a positive 9. Now here's where I want to caution you. if you go back and you look at the question we were doing, you see how we have a positive 9 and a negative 12? That's actually a distractor. A lot of people picked that answer when it was the real Regents time because they weren't paying attention to this very front negative here. So if I go ahead and copy it out, that 4x squared is now subtract 4x squared. The negative 6x and negative 6x that we just said make negative 12x is going to become positive 12x because of this negative sign out here. So now that's plus 12x because it was minus a negative. And then this guy right here, the positive 9, when it gets the negative sign applied to it, is going to be a subtract 9. Now none of those, oh, I missed my squared. None of those pieces had 4 in their answer. They only had 2, but these two guys right here should combine like terms. 5x squared minus 4x squared just makes x squared. So we have x squared plus 12x minus 9. We go back to the choices. Looks like choice 3. Okay, the next one is showing a sequence of blocks. They're building a pattern here. And look at the pattern, you see, okay, I've got 1, I've got 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 3, 6, and then 10. And you may not be able to, with your mind, be able to see what they're adding every time, but they are adding something kind of different every time. This one I'm adding 2 to it. This one I'm adding 3 to it. This one I'm adding 4 to it. So you're changing what you're adding every time. Like, all right, how many blocks are there going to be if I keep going? So I'm going to jump over to my Smart Notebook again and give myself another page. So in the first stage, I'm going to call that A1. We had 1 block. And in A2, we had 3 blocks. But in order to get there, we figured out we added 2 blocks to it. And then to get to A3, let's see, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We had 6 blocks. To get from 3 to 6, we just added 3. I might see a pattern here. Let's try it one more time. We said the last one was 10 blocks. What did you add, obviously, to get from 6 to 10? And that's 4. I want you to notice something, that this number and this number matches every stinking time. So to get to a particular stage, I just had to take the number before it and add whatever the index number is, the sort of number of the term that I'm on. So if I wanted the 4th number, I would just have to take the 3rd number and add 4 to it, and I would get to whatever this is. So if I wanted the 5th number, let's follow that pattern. If I added the 5th number, I would have to add 5 to 10. So I'm going to go down here and say, okay, let's do it in blue because we didn't have that. A5 would have to be 10 plus 5, which is 15. Then A6 would have to be the 15 plus 6, which is 21. And then A7 would have to be the 21 plus what number? 7. So 21 plus 7 is 28. So the 7th term would have to be 28. Now if I go back to here, that would be choice 3. So you should be putting choice 3 in your document. Last question. It said the graph of the quadratic function is shown below, and they're asking what that function could be. And you go, hey, I thought you said we don't have to have a graphing calculator. Well, you should be able to figure out based on vertex formula what the vertex of this guy is. So if you look right there, the vertex, the top of this graph, is a positive 15 and a positive 25 because we're lined up here on positive 15 and it's as high as 25. 15 is an x value and the 25 is a y value. It's a frowny parabola, which means we should have a negative leading coefficient, so it's either choice 2 or choice 4, so I can throw away 1 and 3. And we have the positive 25 right there, and the 15 has to be the opposite, because we talked about when you do transformations, when you go side to side, the x is sort of the opposite. The y, the vertical, is going to be the same number. So it's not this one, which changed the y and kept the x. It's keep the y and change the x. So it would be choice 4. And choice 4 would be your final answer. So hopefully that helped you answer your homework. If you already submitted it, you can resubmit it to make sure you have it all right. You should have 100. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to write me a message in Google Classroom or email me. But you should be looking for one of these assignments at least one a week, sometimes two a week, because remember, we have our class usually 2 or 3 times a week. So I'm going to try to make sure that I give you enough work that it's making it worthy of you getting Regents credit, but not so much that it buries you because I know you have other classes to do. All right, good luck and keep in touch with me with Google Classroom and let me know if you need technology help or anything else. I'll see what I can do to help you.